Hello, my horror-loving dudes, I'm KillJoy Jake, and today we're going to be doing a little everything we know so far on The Boogeyman, a movie that comes out relatively soon on June 2nd. Before we get into this bad boy, if you guys could like this video and subscribe, it would make old Jakey here pretty dang happy. Alright, now let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
2023's The Boogeyman is based on a Stephen King short story that was published in the March of 1973 issue of Cavalier magazine. It would later end up in Night Shift, a 1978 collection of Stephen King short stories. Night Shift is probably Stephen King's best collection of short stories as well. I highly recommend it. It features Jerusalem's Lot, Salem's Lot, Graveyard Shift, and also Children of the Corn. Real quick aside here, I'm setting up this Everything We Know video a little differently than like I usually do. I'm like 90% sure the movie is taking a lot of liberties based off of that short story. It's almost a completely different thing, I think, so we're gonna talk about that at the end to avoid spoilers for what the movie could be. For all I know, maybe it has the same twist, but maybe it doesn't. We'll talk about that at the end though. The screenplay for this film was originally written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who have also penned the scripts for 65 and A Quiet Place, and was also co-written by Akela Cooper, who wrote the script for Megan from earlier this year, and also Malignant from 2021, a big standout film from that year. The movie is directed by Rob Savage, who did the absolutely excellent Host from 2020, one of my favorite found footage flicks, and Dashcam, one of my least favorite found footage flicks, which was meh. The movie was shot in early 2022 in New Orleans, which is kind of interesting because Renfield was also filmed there. I'm seeing a lot more movies that I've been covering take place in New Orleans or were shot there for some reason. I wonder if there's like a new tax credit or something going on there. A lot of movies coming out of Louisiana, which is pretty cool. The film stars Sophie Thatcher, who's in Yellow Jackets, a show I need to watch because everyone keeps talking about it. Jasmine Savoy Brown is in that as well, Scream fans, just a heads up. And she was also featured in the kind of underrated Book of Boba Fett. I mean, I liked it. It's better than Mandalorian Season 3. The film also stars the tremendously underrated David Dastmalchian, who is in like everything, but you don't realize it. He's one of those actors, and it's really unfortunate because I think he's fantastic in everything I've ever seen him in. The Dark Knight, Prisoners, Polka Dot Man, and the one movie from James Gunn. If I say the title of it, this video will get demonetized. Another clue there is that there's a 2016 rendition of the same film that sucks. But now getting into the history of this film that is pretty rocky to say the least, the film was announced all the way back in 2018 that Scott Beck and Brian Woods would be writing a screenplay for. You know, like how I was talking about earlier, but then gets pretty crazy. In 2019, Disney acquired Fox, so there was a lot of projects that got canceled, and this was one of them. But it wasn't until November of 2021 that thankfully the film was revived. Oh, fresh new life was brought into the film, but that also meant a big rewrite for the script. More announcements came at this time as well, including that Rob Savage would be directing the film, as well as Mark Heyman, who co-wrote the script for Black Swan, would also be doing a rewrite of the screenplay, but it would be based on the original drafts by Scott Beck, Brian Woods, and Akela Cooper. Most times you hear that, that's not a very good thing here, but I mean, like, I like Black Swan. It's a pretty good movie. It's all right. I still think this movie could be good. It's got a pretty captivating trailer. That one jump scare got me pretty good. Tell you what, little light rolling down in the bed and then suddenly, bam, just monster. Ooh. Another update that came along with this, which horror fans are sick of hearing at this point, is that the film would be streaming straight to Hulu without a theatrical release. Studios are thankfully starting to realize that that's a pretty dumb idea. I mean, let's look at Prey that came out last year. A lot of people loved it. It was a huge hit for Hulu, and it probably would have made a bunch of money at the theaters if it had gotten a theatrical release. But unfortunately, it did not. After some positive test screenings, though, the studio changed its mind and decided, yeah, let's throw Boogeyman in the theaters. Maybe it'll make some money. You can throw it on a streaming service later, but give it its theatrical run, baby. Let's have these movies make some money. Now let's finally get into some plot details. First, I want to read you the premise for the movie, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the short story and how they both just simply can't come to the same conclusion, but also maybe? I don't know. Let's talk about it though. Let's get into this. The synopsis for the film reads, high school student Sadie Harper and her little sister Sawyer are still reeling from the recent death of their mother. Devastated by his own pain, their father Will, a therapist by profession, gives them neither the support nor the affection that they try to claim from him. When a desperate patient shows up unexpectedly at their house asking for help, they bring in a terrifying entity that preys on the families and feeds on their greatest suffering. That sounds like your standard paranormal horror flick, and honestly, I'm kind of excited for it. It looks pretty cool, it looks well executed, I'm excited to check this bad boy out. But the short story is very different, and this is where I'm gonna put my little spoiler warning down at the bottom of the screen. Like I said, they may still do this for the movie, but I don't see how they could, especially with how the film is set up versus how this is set up. Spoiler warning, I guess, but I'm 90% sure they're not doing this. The short story takes place entirely in the office of Dr. Harper, who in the movie is the father figure to this family, but that's not exactly the case here. In fact, it's quite the opposite. He's talking to a man named Lester Billings, who is David Dastmalchian's character in the movie. The meat and potatoes of the short story is Lester telling Dr. Harper the story of how he lost his 3 young children to a supposed boogeyman. They would be left alone in their cribs and they would scream out Boogeyman, and then they would come in, the child's dead, and their closet doors are always left ajar. It's a very scary thing. You can't quite explain what is going on here. But essentially, just to get to the end of the story real quick, Lester goes to talk to a nurse to set up another appointment with the doctor, and then no nurse is there. It's completely gone. It's an empty room. What is going on here? He goes back to Dr. Harper's office where he notices the closet door is ajar, and then the Boogeyman comes out, taking off a disguise that he was Dr. Harper the whole time. What? So essentially, if they're going to adapt that twist into the movie, that would make the dad character in the movie the Boogeyman the whole time. Which, after reading you the plot synopsis, that would render David Dastmalchian's character completely useless to the story. So I really hope that's not the case and there's just no twist after all. The movie is just so different from this original story, I don't see how they could possibly keep that twist. I mean, the only thing that they could do at this point is make David Dastmalchian's character the Boogeyman the whole time, but that's not really much of a twist if Lester is already coming into this house and being like, oh yeah, here's this demon, and then fucking off. You know what I mean? That's not really a twist at that point. You already know that David's character is like kind of evil, or maybe an anti-hero in some sense, because he's trying to get rid of this thing that maybe caused pain to his family and killed his children. He's trying to pass it on so it doesn't kill him. I just don't see how we could possibly do a twist there when we already know that Lester's character is probably going to be a bad guy in this iteration of the story. But on the other side of that, maybe I'm completely wrong. I mean, the dad's character is being described as emotionally unavailable. Maybe that's because he's an evil entity that eats children. But once again, I'm just going back and forth on this. Like, he had children with a wife, presumably. What happened? Like, if he was this evil entity, why wouldn't he just eat the children? This is a really tough subject for me to talk on, because when I'm talking about adapting stories to the screen, you kind of want to keep some of those remnants from the story still present and alive. And it seems like they've done that with a completely different, plot line and set of characters, essentially. Instead of Lester having a broken family, it's the opposite now. The psychiatrist has that, so it makes me think Lester's the evil character now. I just don't think it would be very good story-wise to reveal Lester as being the killer the whole time, because it's like, yeah, of course he's evil. You had that in the plot description, my dude. Not every single movie needs a big twist ending like it's an M. Night Shyamalan flick. What do you guys think about 2023's The Boogeyman? Not to be confused with 2005's Boogeyman. Here's a clip from that real quick. Tell me what you guys think about this movie down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this brand new Everything We Know So Far video on The Boogeyman. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel grow, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.